Hey, how are you, Jian? Jingyan?
Yeah. Hi.
How are you? Why only you? I mean, you got the email, right?
Yeah, everything alright, and I already start my the assignment.
What assignment are you talking about?
Like I'm late for the class, but from this week I'm already working on the previous assignments on the
Oh, you mean
Connect.
on the Connect? Okay, Connect. All right, but you got my email, right, about
Yeah.
going online, right? But why is there only you? And also, you need to sign into the discussion board. Looks like nobody has signed into the discussion board.
My discussion board. I didn't see anything on my discussion board. It's
No,
blank.
no. It should be. You should go there. Go to
1
discussion
second.
board.
Let me check again. Oh, I see it right now.
Okay. All right. And I wonder why there's no one. You must have seen the. I don't see even you there yet. Uh, okay. All righty. So let's.
So just one question for the black discussion board. Should I just
Mhm.
say my name and I'm already in the class or
Yeah, yeah.
anything else I need to do?
I don't look, but I don't see you there. I'm updating. I'm refreshing my screen, but did you report attendance there? Did you create your thread? Just put your name. You see, create. Do you see this?
Mm-hmm.
There's create thread button. You click it.
Okay.
Type your last name, comma, first name. That's it. You don't have to write anything. Submit,
Okay.
and then
Got it.
that's
Thank
it.
you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know why these people are not. Let me just make a call. Yeah, hi. This is Dr. Hong. Who am I speaking with? Yeah, Carolina. Hi. Carolina. Uh, I have a class currently at 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. But it's an in-person class. but I've sent out email to everyone, the students, on Sunday and also this morning, that I'm going online for the time being because my access has been, suspended. Access to the building has been suspended because I was randomly selected for PCR test. So until I get, PCR test um, results, they suspend my. That so I'm not on campus. I'm not in campus today, and I sent out emails to the students, on Sunday and this morning twice, and they're not, they're not in the blackboard. They're not. So I was wondering if there was anyone in on the seventh floor, if ever there may be some people gathered in front of F707. Yeah, if there's anyone, please tell them to check the announcements in the Blackboard, and also, whenever I post something on the Blackboard, it goes out to everyone by email, so they should check it. They should have checked it. They had 2 days to check it, and 2 emails over 2 days, and I don't think, huh? This this is FNB100 section 1500. Yeah. All right. Thank you. And Carolina, if F707 is open, they can go in and use the computers there. I don't know if it is open, but if it is open, but I don't know if you can open it, or have someone like Iona or Jocelyn to open it for them. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye. All righty. So, oh, hi. I see Cedric and Dilly. So only 3 people. All righty. How are you guys? How are you, Cedric? Are you guys there?
I'm still here.
Yeah, you're there, but the other 2 guys, Cedric, Dilly, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good, good, good. Um, Now they are joining. They are starting to join. 9 minutes past the hour.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, delayed response, huh? How are you, Melody? Melody, are you there? Melody? Hello? Okay, I see Bernard, Rainier in the forum, but I don't see them here. All right. So what did I do?
Hello? What happened? Oh my goodness.
All right, I was accidentally I refreshed the browser, and then I was everything was um, back to square one. Um, so I'm sharing my screen, and you guys can hear me, right? And very slowly.
Yeah, I can hear you now, Professor. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All righty, so you guys all got my email, right?
No, I
And I
didn't.
wonder, you didn't. I sent out that email, 2 emails, yesterday and today. So you should, and also it's posted on the, it was posted yesterday, right? And I also sent it out again. So I've been telling you to make a habit of checking the announcements at least twice a week. Okay. And is there anyone who's connecting from the Computer Lab F707? Anybody is connecting from F707? No? So how did you know, Melody? How did you know that we are meeting online?
Are you there, Professor?
How did you know that we are meeting online? Melody, did you hear me?
Melody's saying she can't hear you.
Can you hear me, Professor?
Yeah, I can hear you.
But I can't hear him.
Like, did you just hear me talk?
No, I don't hear anything.
Ah. I think it is your looks like your speaker is fine. Your microphone is fine. It looks like your microphone is fine, but the alrighty. So, is there anyone among you who is connecting from F707? Where are you guys? Are you all from connecting from your home?
F707, that's our classroom, right?
Right.
Yeah,
It's
we're
locked.
actually, yeah, it's locked. We're actually on campus.
Oh, you're on campus. Melody, are you in
Yeah.
F7, our classroom, F707?
We're sitting outside.
Or sitting outside? Okay. All righty. So, Melody, how did you know? How did you know that we are meeting online? I mean, you
Oh,
said you
because
didn't
I'm here
receive
with
email.
Cedric, and he's sitting across from me. So he just looked
Oh,
on Blackboard, and he told me.
okay.
As we were waiting,
All
I'm
right.
like, class didn't start yet, which is odd.
Okay. All righty. It was, I understand it was at short notice, but I sent, email twice since yesterday. Matthews, you can lower your hand. Go ahead, Matthews. You have a question? Matthews, you raised your hand. All right. I don't know if Matthews has microphone or not, but did someone come from the department and open the? Did someone come to open the door for you? I called the department and sent someone to open the door.
Yeah, there was a woman, but she just let us sit out here. She didn't open the door.
Okay, she doesn't have, she doesn't have the card key. So then, if someone somebody might come along to open the door. But if they let you in F707, then go in there. If not, how many are there in the outside?
It looks like 1, 2, 3, 5 of us or 6 of us.
Okay, and so everyone has a laptop or something, right? Mobile device. Is there anyone that
One of
if
the
you
people
don't
that are
have
here,
mobile?
he doesn't have access. He needs to be in the room to have access to the collab. So maybe they should send someone up.
Okay, so if you can't, here's the thing. So to establish your, no, not there, discussion, you have to report attendance in the discussion board, right? So for that, you need you need to have your own device, or you must be in the computer lab. But that's fine. I mean, I will give, I'll give you time. But the first thing you need to do is, if you have a device, the first thing you need to do is to go into the discussion board and report attendance. All righty. So last time we finished all the discussion about the income statement. So today we are moving on to the balance sheet. So I will need to okay, new whiteboard. Let me. No, not that one, not that one. Don't do this. All right, here. So at the beginning, I told you the balance sheet and income statement have two different goals, right? Income statement the goal of the income statement is basically, describing the process leading to profit, right? And the goal of the balance sheet is to describe the capital structure, right? We talked about this already, as we started as a topic 2. So the capital structure is what? Remember, we talked about the when we discussed, income statement, one of the remember the sunk cost, right? Why do we have a sunk cost? Okay, I guess I can do it here. Of course, sunk cost is part of the expenses, right? The primary source of expense is CGS, which is also called total variable cost. Secondary source of expenses is OPEX, or operating expenses. And I told you that's roughly equivalent to total fixed cost. And what is total fixed cost? In microeconomics, most of the total fixed cost is due to initial investment. Initial investment, which is also called sunk cost. Okay, does anyone remember what sunk cost is? Well, the sunk cost, yeah.
No, I was gonna say the money that you put into the company that you can't get back. I think you said something like that.
Right. You need to slow down. Can you slow down and say it again?
Sure.
So everyone can
I
hear?
was saying the money that you put into the company that you technically, like you say, sink into the company that you cannot get back.
Oh, well, you can get it back, of course. I mean, if you cannot get back, you cannot just get it back immediately, right? You cannot just get it back immediately. But
Right.
you will need to recover this. I mean, if you invest in a company and if you cannot recover it, then why? You'll get it back, but it's going to take a lot of time, right? So who was this?
Melody.
Oh, Melody, right?
Yes,
That was
sir.
Melody, right? Melody.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, Melody. So you're getting okay. You're getting 0.5. It's so we used um, uh, Dell as an example. I mean, usually in manufacturing, I mean, sunk cost is minimal. Sunk cost is minimal in case of retail. I mean, retail has very little sunk cost, but manufacturing has huge sunk cost, right? Manufacturing has huge sunk cost. In case of computer manufacturing or automobile manufacturing, uh, it will be something like in the order of hundreds of millions of dollars. Uh, but you need to do this because otherwise there is no manufacturing. Because all the manufacturing requires plant and equipment, and it must be built. The plant must be built, and then manufacturing equipment must be installed in the plant. It takes time. This construction alone would take a year or a year and a half, and then so basically, if it costs $100 million to build a plant, right? That $100 million is the sunk cost, but where does that $100 million come from? Huh? Where does that $100 million come from? Where does that $100 million come from? There are only two ways. Think about it. How do you raise this $100 million? Only two ways. Either you must have an investor, right, or investors, or lenders, or the creditors, right? So only two sources. The money from the capital from the investors are called equity. And the capital from the creditors or lenders, that's called the debt, right? Think about it. So basically, to start up this business, right? We need almost 90. We need plant and equipment. And that cost almost, let's say 90 million. And the plant and equipment is called physical capital, right? Along with plant and equipment, we need, office building, right? We need office building, so building and land. Of course, all of these, plant and equipment, building and land, they are plant and equipment must be built on the land, right? We need to buy land. We need to purchase land, and on that land we will build plant and equipment. So, and we need to have some office buildings. So, all of this will cost us $90 million. Okay, and these are called by many different names. Fixed assets, real assets, physical assets, because they are really physical in nature. And non-current assets or hard assets, whatever, So they go by all these different names. But plant and equipment, building and land, they must be, they cost, 90 million. And then not only physical assets, I mean, just because, suppose, plant and equipment is ready. I mean, plant is built. It took a year and a half or 2 years. It took 2 years. Plant is completed. We have office building. So it's done. But, just because we have plant and equipment, it doesn't mean that the production can start right away. I mean, and until the plant is completed. It took 2 years. During that time, the company must be. Does that mean no one can work? Somebody has to work, right? Even though we don't have plant, at least the company is. The company should be, gearing up, right? There must be an office. There must be, people working in the office. The only thing that is not done is only the plant, and the company isn't making any money just yet because the production capacity is zero just yet. But then, until then, the company still has to go on. And once the plant is built, we need to acquire. We need to purchase raw material, right? We need to hire production workers, and so basically, there is money that is needed until we set the production in motion, right? Until we start the production, we need some money to run the company, right? While the company is still in preparatory stage, right? Still a preparatory phase, but it still needs to still the company needs to operate. So basically, to operate that company, right? To run the company while until we produce the first batch of products and sell this first batch of products, and until then, we need to keep the company running. And for that, let's say we need $10 million. That $10 million is called current assets or liquid assets or working capital. Okay, current assets, liquid assets, working capital. Let's say we need, $10 million of that. $10 million for that. Okay, so basically, we need two types of assets. One, fixed assets, real assets, or non-current assets, physical assets. They all mean the same thing, right? Which is plant and equipment, right? And we need, so they are physical capital. Basically, when we say capital means capital is means of production, right? Capital doesn't mean only money capital or financial capital. Capital means mainly physical capital, right? Physical capital. Plant and equipment, building and land, that's physical capital. Whereas we need working capital or current assets or liquid assets to support the company until we sell our first batch of products. And even after we sell our first batch of products, we need liquid assets, right? That we can use to buy raw material and support the production activity. Now, so that's total of 100 million, right? We know the total is 100 million. And that's called total assets. That's called total assets. Then where did this 100 million come from? We know it came from either, we already talked about it, equity or debt. So equity is, they just say equity is owner's capital. But who are the owners? Shareholders are the owners. But think about it. Let's take this to the beginning at time zero. At time zero, right? Think about the timeline. At time zero, right? At that point, you need $100 million to build a plant and to support the activities until the plant is completed and until we churn out our first batch of products and sell and generate our first round of revenue, right? So we need $100 million. But then how do we raise that $100 million? I already said, equity and debt, but equity comes from the investors at time zero. Who are the investors? There's no one. At time zero, you are a startup. You're just a startup, right? You're just a startup. And who is going to invest, any money to a startup? Startup has no track record, no assets to put up as collateral. Startups all literally start small. They just almost like a one-man operation, Bill Gates started to build computers manually from his father's garage. So did Steve Jobs. So did Michael Dell. And at that point, they don't have like, $100 million plant, right? But, they all were lucky to find an investor or investors. Generally at that point, at that stage, it's the venture capital, right? Venture capital is also called angel investors. And what do? They identify, they screen a lot of startups, and they find the ones with the huge potential, and then they invest. I mean, you may have seen. Have you guys seen the TV shows like Shark Tank? Anyone ever saw? Anyone ever?
Yes.
Yeah. What is that show about? What is the Shark Tank about? What is that about?
Either individuals that are trying to get their business off the ground or have pre-existing businesses, but they need investors to help them grow.
Yeah, it's basically a meat market. What does that meat market? They meet, right? Meat market is a sort of pun for it's a market for matching the investors with entrepreneurs, right? so those who are, in that show, if they are selected, then they get the funding, right? So just like that, it's basically, venture capital is, an investor that will invest. So, and they are participating in this company as shareholder, right? And actually, venture capital is taking a huge risk, right? Suppose out of this, $100 million, let's say 60 million is equity. Now, who's going to invest 60 million to a startup? Of course, at the beginning, nobody's going to, invest something like 60 million. They will invest something like probably 5 million at most, right? But as time goes on, as this company with $5 million investment, if the company, uh, company takes off and starts to generate a great profit for the size of the company, right? Then of course you can get more investors, right? So venture capital is literally taking the risk. I mean, it's literally an adventure. That's why it's called venture capital. And then that means banks will provide the other, think about it. If they could secure 60 million from the venture capital, then the other 40 million must come from the bank. Of course, at the beginning, at time zero, a startup is a big question mark. It's a big risk. There will be no startup is always a big question mark, right? No bank will lend something like 4 million. That's totally unrealistic. It's totally unrealistic, right? So we'll only assume hypothetically that they got the $40 million loan from the bank. Okay. Again, think about it. You might wonder, do they have to borrow money from the bank only? I mean, can they sell bond? Right? You learn that bond is dead instrument. The companies sell bonds to raise capital from the bond market. It's basically debt borrowing, right? But then think about it. You are a big question mark. Banks don't even lend to you. You cannot be accepted. You cannot be admitted to the bond market. You cannot be allowed to sell bond in the bond market. You cannot be allowed to sell stocks in the stock market, right? In other words, you are not yet publicly. You cannot go public yet because you don't qualify. So if you can sell stocks in the stock market, sell bond in the bond market, that will be that will be after long after you have taken off and long after you have proven track record, right? Although theoretically equity means stock, debt means bonds, but that's not for the startup. For the startup, you don't have that privilege, right? Startups, and even you cannot borrow money from the bank because banks are not going to, only if you put up collateral. Only if you put up collateral, then you can borrow from the bank. But let's say, so this is very unrealistic, but we'll have to assume that you got 60 million invested by a venture capital and 40 million borrowed from the bank. Then this 60 million and 40 million will take will be broken down into right equity and debt or liabilities, right? The liabilities are broken down into current liabilities and then non-current liabilities and equity. Everything now then think about it. Current liability is another name for short-term debt. Short-term debt. Non-current liability is another name for long-term debt. Okay, and the line items, I'm not going to go into the detail here, but the point is, long-term debts. I'm gonna go into the short-term debt, the details of short-term debt later. But the long-term debt generally fall into two categories: bonds and mortgage. Now think about it. As I said, for a startup, this is almost impossible. But we'll just assume that although it is unrealistic, we will assume that they have bonds, mortgage. Most of the if they ever even borrowing money from the bank is almost unrealistic for a startup. But let's say they were able to borrow money, right? Get a mortgage loan, because they this will be mainly for what? This will be mainly for land and building, right? Land and building, or also plant, right? Equity. Suppose so we raised the 60 million in equity, and then 40 million in debt. So if you look at the big picture, right? If you look at the big picture, both sides must add up to the same number. In other words, so total of this side, total of the liabilities and equity side, total liabilities and equity side, the numbers must also add up to 100 million. And then you can tell this 100 million in the this 100 million came from this 100 million, right? The 100 million in the asset side came from 100 million in the liabilities and equity side. So in other words, what that means is the liabilities and equity side is the source of the capital. Source of the capital. And then the total asset side is the use of the capital. Use of that $100 million capital. In other words, this side is how the capital was raised, and it's only one of the two ways, or combination of the two, equity or debt, right? It's equity and debt. Only two ways the capital can be raised. And then this is that capital, how that capital is held, in what form that capital is held. Of that 100 million that was raised through debt and equity, some of it is held in the form of plant, some of it is held in the form of equipment, some of it is, held in the form of building, some of it is in land, some of it is held in the form of working capital, right? That makes sense? So this 40 million and 60 million, think about it. You can say 60% of your total assets came from equity, 40% came from debt. In other words, that's called capital structure. That's called capital structure. Okay? So total capital structure is basically nothing but how much of the total assets came from equity, how much of it came from debt. All right. Again, so here's the thing. We define. We can also define. Total assets. Total debt plus equity. And that describes exactly the, that describes exactly the structure of the balance sheet. Isn't it right? Total assets, right? 100 million. And whatever is above that is just a breakdown of the total assets. And total assets are basically, divided into non-current assets and current assets, right? Non-current assets are also called, fixed assets, real assets, physical assets. Current assets are also called, liquid assets or working capital. So, and then it came from debt and equity. And if, 60 million is equity. And 40 million is debt. Total assets will have to be 100 million, right? And then you can say 40% is debt, right? 60% equity. And that's called capital structure. And basically, balance sheet is all about describing this capital structure. Okay, so I think this is a good time to take a 10-minute break. So it's 3:52. So let's take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 10 minutes later. Okay. All righty. I see only 9 people. All right. All right, we're back. We're back. Now I just spoke with assistant in the department, and she said they were able to let you in the computer lab. So how many of you are in the computer lab? Are you all in the computer lab now? Are you all in the classroom? Hello? Are you guys there?
I'm not at the campus, so I'm not in the.
You're not in campus, okay. Who is in the campus? Who is in the classroom? Arlene Suarez, are you in the classroom? Are you there, Arlene? Bernard?
Hello, can you hear
Arlene,
me?
are you in the classroom?
No, the door didn't. Well, they asked us if we wanted to get inside, but we all have laptops, so we're sitting outside.
Oh, yeah, but they opened the door for you anyway. Didn't
No,
they?
I don't think so. They gave us an option to, but none of us went in because, well, yeah, the door didn't get open because we all have laptops, so we just sat outside.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. How come? Okay, the girl I spoke to said, they let the they brought the public safety and opened the door. Okay, so somehow uh, that wasn't done. Uh, all right, and well, hopefully next time they will have, they will let you in the computer lab. All right. So okay. So here we now we understand what capital structure is, and we understand, the basic structure of the balance sheet. The name balance sheet literally uh, refers to the balanced state between the two sides. Think about it. It's called balance sheet because total assets must balance total assets must balance out with the total liabilities and equity, right? That's why it is called the balance sheet. If it doesn't balance out, then you have a problem. That's not a balance sheet. They must balance out. So when we say another thing is that when we say um, assets, I mean this is basically called accounting equation. Total assets equal total debt plus equity. That's called accounting equation. But that is exactly how asset is defined. In other words, uh, how where the assets came from. Assets came from either debt or equity, right? None of these. Plant and equipment, it can't be there if we didn't raise capital through $100 million capital through debt and equity, right? Uh, and also, that's one way we can define assets. Assets are debt plus equity. That means there's no, uh, assets consist of debt and equity, right? Some assets came from debt, some assets came from equity, right? Equity and debt are source of the capital. Now, and if we define assets, right, there are at least three ways to define assets, at least like um, when we say assets, right, what does that mean? They say assets are what you own. In accounting, they say assets are what you own, and liabilities are what you owe. But can you just define it by whether you own or owe? Okay, can you define it only like that? Own versus owe. They say, debt is what you owe. True. Assets are what you own, but without debt, in other words, it cannot be separated like that. It cannot be. Why? Because as you have seen, assets are what you own, but assets came from debt and equity. Equity is clearly what you own, right? This is what you own. Debt is what you owe, right? And equity is what you own, free of any debt, free of any debt. So just defining assets just in terms of whether you own or owe, that's incomplete. That's incomplete. Okay, that's incomplete. Why? You cannot simply say, you cannot simply say asset is what you own. And it's true. I mean, asset is what you own, but what is equity? Debt is what you owe, but what about equity? I mean, if equity on the right-hand side, the equity and liability side, liability and equity side, that's what you, it's not exactly what you owe only, right? What you own comes from both what you owe and what you own, right? So that kind of definition is not very accurate. I mean, asset is what you own, liability is what you owe, because then how do you explain equity? Equity is also what you own, free of debt. But then the next question is, in accounting class, they always, define it this way. But, you can look at it from either from the owner's perspective and the company's perspective. Okay, from the owner's perspective, now you might wonder, isn't owner the company? No, owners and company are two different things, two separate things. The owner can look. A company is nothing but a vehicle. Company is a vehicle, right? A vehicle for what? Generating profit and transferring, channeling that or funneling that profit to the owners. Okay. So if you think about it, a company, you all know, you must have taken Business 104, and if you have taken Business 104, you know there are largely three types of firms. One is sole proprietorship, right? Only one owner, sole proprietorship. And then partnership, right? And then corporation. Now, partnership is sort of like a small scale version of a corporation, but because partners are shareholders of the company, but the number of partners, it could be many, or it could be just two. Again, in partnership, transferring ownership, transferring partnership can be difficult. Whereas, and in corporation, there's C generally they call C corporation is what they call corporation. There's also S corporation, but C corporation is the most dominant form of corporation. And think about it. In a corporation, there can be millions of shareholders. I mean, maybe not millions, but at least tens of thousands of shareholders, right? And the shareholders are theoretically owners, but if you have 0.00001% of the number of shares that you have is only like 0.00001% of the entire shares, then I mean, who considers that as owner? I mean, when we say owner, I mean theoretically all shareholders are owners. I'm an Apple shareholder. I was Apple shareholder like 6 years ago or 7 years ago. Now, as an Apple shareholder, now I have more shares, but back in 2012, 2014, I had only 10 shares. Think about it. 10 shares of Apple would yeah, I was a partial owner, but 10 shares would mean like 0.0000001%, right? Just theoretically an owner, but my relationship with Apple is as light as just the proportion of my share in the total equity of Apple, right? I wouldn't, and my connection with Apple can easily be severed if I sell those 10 shares, right? So in other words, unless you have like 10% of the shares, more than 10% of the shares, and if you have more than 10% of the shares, then you are clearly a majority shareholder. And there would be, there will be 10% shareholder, 11%, 13%, 15%. But if you can, no one holds something like 25%. I mean that would be already huge. I mean, it's not easy to own something like that because total market capitalization, in other words, total equity value of Apple is almost $3 trillion. 3 trillion, right? That's the size of the like German economy, somewhere between Germany and UK, right? So the ownership is not the company. Think about it. Company is an inanimate entity. That's why I'm saying company is only a vehicle. Company is only a vehicle to funnel the profit to the shareholders, right? And if that's why ownership and management are two separate things. Think about it. What are the shareholders? Shareholders are they are owners. Theoretically they are owners, but then think about it. Owners are, of course, shareholders, and then but is every shareholder the same? No, of course not. Totally. This is not a one person, one vote democratic system. I mean, if I have, as I said, I used to have 10 shares. I mean, my 10 shares is only, that will give me 10 votes. But to exercise my 10, where do you exercise 10 vote? Where do you exercise those votes? You will exercise the vote at the general shareholders meeting, at annual general shareholders meeting. But when they have general shareholders meeting, will you be there? No. Obviously, I mean, I have only to attend general shareholders meeting. They will be holding it somewhere near uh, San Jose, California, probably San Francisco, and it will be held at Apple campus or otherwise in a hotel, um, a big hotel in San Francisco. Even if the general shareholders meeting is held in Apple campus, Apple headquarters, I will need to fly there first. To cast my vote, I will have to fly there. So, and then book a hotel. So it will take at least 3 days, right, to take part in that shareholders meeting. First, I will have to fly there. Then I will have to stay overnight at the hotel, attend the shareholders meeting the next day, cast my vote, and then fly out the next day. Now, for holding just 10 shares, who's going to do that? I mean, you have to then, you have to you have to cut off from work. You have to take a 3-day vacation leave from the work, right? And then your boss asks you, why do you need, why do you take 3 days off? You say, I'm an Apple shareholder and I'm going to have to participate in the general shareholders meeting. Do you think, cutting off from work 3 days, for exercising your sacred, rights as a shareholder, will that make your boss happy? Obviously, nobody will take 3 days off for exercising. So, in other words, it's theoretically, although theoretically, you're an owner. As long as you're a shareholder, you're an owner. But that's just that's a BS. Nobody takes it that seriously. If you are just, if you own 0.000001%, if you are like 11% shareholder, 15% shareholder, it means something, because with your vote, and if you can ally with other voters, other majority shareholders, and achieve 51% vote. Look, 51% is supermajority. You can do anything with 51%, right? Nothing can beat 51%. So shareholders and general shareholders meeting, what do? Generally, what they do is, does anyone have any idea what they do at general shareholders meeting? What do they do? They elect directors. Okay, and so the elected directors will form the board of directors. And then what do? What does the board of directors do? What does the board of directors do? Anyone? Any idea? they elect a chairperson. Right? That's what is called chairman of the board. They elect chair. Now, it's like the citizens elect congressmen, right? But also citizens directly elect the president, but no, not in the corporation. Board of directors elect the chairperson. Owners, shareholders elect directors, and the board of directors elect chairperson. So then what? The chair is, of course, the head of the board of directors. So what do they do? Are they the management? No, board of directors are not the management. Board of directors are only the representatives of the shareholders. They only represent the shareholders. In other words, they represent the ownership. But as they represent the ownership, what do? They don't run the company. Board of directors don't run the company. Running the company is charged to whom? Running the company is the responsibility of the management. Okay? Running the company is the responsibility of the management. So then, management is basically the set of people that have this type of chief something officer title: CEO, CFO, COO, CIO, Chief Information Officer, Chief Financial Officer, COO, Chief Operating Officer, and so on. But the management is not the owners. You have to understand, management is not the ownership. Ownership is represented by the board of directors, headed by the chair. And what is the board of directors' job? Anyone? What is the job of the board of directors? Anyone? No? The job of the board of directors is to hire and fire the management. Okay? I've been telling you, the company is only a vehicle, right? Company isn't an animate entity. It's an inanimate entity. As an inanimate entity, they don't own or owe, the company doesn't own or owe anything. It's actually the owners who own or owe anything. But, owners are separate from the management. I mean, management is hired by the board of directors. If they do well, if the management does a good job, and the goal of the management, right? Goal of the management is what? The goal of the management is, what do you think is the goal of the management? The goal of the management is to maximize the shareholder wealth. Shareholder wealth or shareholder value. That means to maximize the stock profit. I mean, stock price, to maximize stock price, right? Shareholders' wealth is reflected in the stock price. To maximize shareholder wealth is the management's role. It's their mission. And if they do that well, then they will keep hiring them. If they don't do that, if they fail in doing that, then they will fire them. board of directors will fire them. Right? Does that make sense? Now, of course, maximizing shareholder value is closely related to maximizing profit, because by maximizing profit, when profit is that profit is reflected in the stock price, right? That profit is reflected in the stock price. So it's the same goal. Goal of any business is to maximize profit. The goal of the management, the mission of the management, is to maximize the shareholder value or shareholder wealth. And then management is, the job of the board of directors is to hire and fire management. They don't get directly involved in, every little thing, management, managerial issues. So this is why they say the ownership and management are separate. Ownership and management are separate. But sometimes if you are one of the board members, right, board of directors, if you are one of the, you can run for, you can also occupy some management position. Why? Think about it. If you are Steve Jobs is one of the directors. Steve Jobs would be one of the directors of the company of Apple, right? Because he owns, Steve Jobs, as the founder of Apple, he must own, at least something like, 11% or whatever, 11% of the shares. Of course, Steve Jobs died in already. When did he die? 2000, when? Years ago, 12 or something. But when he was alive, he was one of the directors. And he was probably elected chair at some point, but then they fired him. What that means is they fired him from the chair position. It doesn't mean, and he was also a CEO for some time. He was also a CEO, because think about it. Who knows better about how to run Apple than Steve Jobs? Because he's the founder. Also, Bill Gates was also chair and CEO of Microsoft for a long time, but he's no longer the CEO. But he's still the chair. The chair is someone who has, think about it. If Steve Jobs and Bill Gates could gather together friendly forces, in other words, friendly shareholders, friendly majority shareholders, then they can reach 51%. They can vote together in unison. They vote together. So who becomes the chair? Whoever wins 51%. Although Steve Jobs may not own 51%, but he can gather together the friendly forces and reach 51%, becomes chair. And as for the CEO position, yeah, with 51% vote, he can appoint himself to CEO position. Bill Gates too. But around 97, I believe, the board of directors kicked him out from CEO position, CEO of Apple. For about 10 years he was, but he was one of the directors, right? Because he was a like 11% or 12% majority shareholder, right? And then they brought him back, reappointed him as CEO around 2007 or 2011 or 2010. So although the ownership and management are separate, but sometimes top managements are top management positions are filled by majority shareholders, some majority shareholders. Okay. So then, the reason I'm talking about this is when we say asset is what you own, equity is what, and liabilities is what you owe. Again, that definition is not complete. If you are, when we say, if you're looking through the lens of the owners, in other words, if you're looking through the lens of the owners, equity is what you own, liability is what you owe. That's correct. But assets, yeah, you can say assets are what you own as owners, but think about it. Assets are the what actually the company owns, right? The company, which is not an animate, a company is an inanimate entity. Company is only a vehicle, right? But if you think about it, the company owes equity to the owners. The company owes the equity to the owners. So it's not that wrong to say, I mean, in accounting, they say equity, asset is what you own, debt and equity is what you owe. But, that you must be the company, not the shareholders, right? In that context, you is the company, not people, not owners, not humans. Company is only an inanimate entity, and company is a vehicle, right? So so that inanimate entity owes debt and equity. The company owes debt to the creditors, or the lenders, or the bondholders, or the debt holders, and the company owes equity to the shareholders or the owners. Okay. So that makes, now then, the picture is complete. And also, how do we, another way we define asset, okay, what you own, what you owe, that's another, that's one way. Most, basic way to define asset. But another way to define asset is asset is something that generates income. Asset must have income generating power. Asset must have income generating power. Assets generate income. If it doesn't generate any income, that's not an asset. I mean, it's called, asset with zero asset value, or non-performing asset. Okay. The power to generate income, that's a very important element of what an asset is. Okay. So as a good example, suppose we have 100 square feet of land. If you can have 100 square feet of land, where would you choose to have it? Would you choose to have it in middle of Manhattan, or would you choose to have it in the middle of Nevada deserts or Arizona? Where would you prefer to have 100 square feet of land? Anyone? No one can.
Say the two places again.
Okay, you can either have 100 square feet of land in Midtown Manhattan, or you can have 100 square feet of
Arizona.
land in. You want to have 100 square feet in Arizona? Why? Because of weather? You like the weather there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Less people. Yeah, personally, I don't like Midtown Manhattan because, too many people, dirty, dingy, cesspool, sewer, smell of sewer. I would rather, Arizona is very pleasant, dry weather, but, look at the asset value. 100
Yeah,
square
Midtown, you're gonna get
feet.
more. You're gonna get more money here than there.
If you have 100 square feet of land in Midtown Manhattan, it's an empty lot. Even if it is an empty lot, it has income generating power. Why? Because in an empty lot, what can you do? At least you can park cars there, right? Of course, 100 square feet is nothing, It's 10 feet by 10 feet. That's 100 square feet, 10 feet by 10 feet. In a space of 10 feet by 10 feet, how many cars can you park? Maybe you can park 3 minis. Park 3 minis, right? It's only good for one or two limos, right? Stretch limos, but maybe you can park 3 minis, but it still generates income. In middle of Arizona, let's say, depending on where, of course, but when we say Nevada, Arizona, it's generally desert, right? What kind of income can it generate? I mean, in the desert, who's going to come to the desert to park? Or, and in Midtown Manhattan, on a 100 square feet of land, you can build a parking structure. If you build a 10-story parking structure, you can park 30 minis, at least 30 minis. That's going to generate a lot of income for you. Whereas in the middle of the desert, Arizona or Nevada, in the middle of deserts, the income generating capability of these two different locations is drastically different, right? And so 100 square feet in Midtown Manhattan is definitely an asset, whereas 100 square feet in middle of the Arizona desert has zero asset value, right? That's what an asset is. Okay, so that's all the time we have. That's all the time we have for now. So I'm gonna have to call it a day. Any questions so far? Any questions? Any questions?
Nope.
No.
All right. All right. If you have no questions, then have a great afternoon, everyone. And I will see you guys on Wednesday. Still, we'll meet online for the time being. Okay, we'll meet online. All righty. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
I will stop. All right. You too. Take care. I'll stop sharing
Have a nice day.
and stop recording. Yeah. All right. All right.